Okay, well, I guess we're ready to get started. Thanks everybody for coming. Tonight's super special for me especially. I've been wanting to talk about this for years and finally was able to get everything together in a way that I could present and not hopefully get run out of town. Because, you know, Jesus is a controversial topic, especially in the near-death experience community, because there are so many Christians that come back with near-death experiences and they want to convert everybody to Jesus, you know. Believe in Jesus or you're going to hell kind of a thing. So tonight we're going to be talking about Jesus, near-death experiences, and also the world's religions. And I think I have a really interesting presentation you guys are going to find, you know, really unusual. Okay, so I'm going to start by reading an excerpt from something I wrote talking about Jesus and near-death experiences. When we consider the experiences that people from all over the world, including non-Christians, are reporting, the best estimates we currently have indicate that Jesus only shows up in 2 to 3% of these experiences. Of the thousands and thousands of experiences all over the world, all kinds of different religions, only 2 to 3%. That's the best estimate we have right now. What makes it look like Jesus is more dominant is that some of the most famous and influential NDEs that have ever been reported come wrapped in Christian packages. This includes the NDEs of such people as Dr. George Ritchie, who was the inspiration behind Dr. Raymond Moody's groundbreaking book, Life After Life, Howard Storm, Betty Eadie, Don Piper, Ian McCormack, Mickey Robinson, and the list goes on. Emanuel Swedenborg. So there's a lot of people that are very well known that have had bestsellers, some of whom even made movies, that have Jesus as the center point in their experience. Western civilization, especially America, is also dominated by Christians and Christian traditions. That means that the Western media, and by extension, most of the global communications network is heavily influenced by Christian sensibilities. And this in turn produces more reporting of NDEs with overtly Christian themes, which of course generate higher ratings, produce more bestsellers, and make more money than less Christian, less dramatic NDEs. I guess that makes sense to all of us, right? Okay. But there's another inescapable truth to consider when it comes to Jesus. If you wash away the dirt that has been piled on Jesus for the last 2,000 years and go back to the earliest records, which predate both Christianity and the New Testament, you discover someone that is astonishingly aligned with the core truths presented in near-death experiences from around the world. Simply put, the original Jesus is one of the biggest, boldest, most courageous champions of near-death experiences and their core truths that ever existed. There is, in fact, no other historical figure that I'm aware of who embodies the core truths presented by NDEs more than Jesus. Okay, so that's kind of an opening thought. Now I want to talk briefly about two main aspects of the light. The one aspect of the light, encounters with the light, that we're all familiar with is kind of the unembodied or universal light. And what that means is it can change into any kind of form. And so I'm going to read you a couple of quotes from near-death experiencers that emphasize that quality of the light. This is from Mel and Thomas Benedict, a near-death experiencer. There was this light shining. I turned toward the light. The light was very familiar to what many people have described in their near-death experiences. It was so magnificent. It is tangible. You can feel it. It is alluring. You want to go to it like you want to go to your ideal mother's or father's arms. As I began to move toward the light, I knew intuitively that if I went to the light, I would be dead. So as I was moving toward the light, I said, please wait a minute. Just hold on for a second. I want to think about this. I would like to talk to you before I go on. To my surprise, the entire experience halted at that point. You are indeed in control of your near-death experience. You are not on a roller coaster ride. So my request was honored, and I had some conversations with the light. The light kept changing into different figures, like Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, mandalas, archetypal images, and signs. I asked the light, what's going on here? Please, light, clarify yourself for me. I really want to know the reality of this situation. I cannot really say the exact words, but it was sort of telepathically communicated to me. The light responded. The information transferred to me was that your beliefs shape the kind of feedback you're getting before the light. If you were a Buddhist or Catholic or fundamentalist, you get a feedback loop of your own stuff. You have a chance to look at it and examine it, but most people do not. That makes sense, right? Pretty much makes sense. And of course, we can see that happening all over the world. Okay, here's another one that's very similar. Okay. This is from Alan Huguenot. I hope I said that right. Huguenot. He's another near-death experiencer. He was on NDE radio. He says, when I had my near-death experience, I went and I arrived with the being of light. And I wrote it down as soon as I came back. The being of light did not identify he or she or itself as being male, female, or otherwise. It was definitely a personal being. That's important. We'll come back to that in a minute. It was definitely a personal being. It did not identify itself as Krishna, Buddha, Christ, Jesus, Allah, or whatever. None of that. It did not identify itself as being any of that. And very interesting discussion I had, and then he's talking about, he had a conversation with another man, Sam was his name. He says, that's the name he has chosen to have. He tortured himself using the Lakota Sioux vision quest of hanging himself by his muscles from a tree and spikes in his chest. He did all of those things because that made sense to him, and he passed over to the other side. And there he met with a light. And he said, the light said, and he said, who are you, to the light? The light said, who do you want me to be? And that was his experience. And so taking his experience and my experience, where the light doesn't identify itself, what Sam's really saying is if you think it's Jesus, it's Jesus. If you think it's Buddha. Whatever you think, that's what the light is. But the truth is, the light is just a being of light. So that's the generic, universal, unembodied kind of stories we hear about encounters with the light. Does that make sense to everybody? The other aspect of the light is the embodied aspect of the light. Now imagine this for a second. What would the light look like if it actually entered a body and was a human being like us? If the light could fully come into this world and manifest as a human being, what would it look like? What would it think? What would it say? What would it do? How would the light's body move? How would we watch a person walk down the road and see how the muscles of the body and the footsteps, what would it look like? Just imagine that just for a second. What would the light look like if it became entombed like we are in a body and actually stayed here with us for years on end, living day to day, going through all the things we go through? One of the things we're going to be exploring tonight is how Jesus may be the best example we have of what the light would look like if it walked among us. And this is really important, and the reason this is important is because we have all these stories and near-death experiences about loving each other, about letting God come into our lives, but what exactly does that look like? And I'm going to be fleshing that out as we go on. So having an example, a real person, flesh and blood, that actually has embodied it to some significant degree that we can learn from is really, really important. Okay, so we're going to start with our first video, and then I got a bunch of really great ones to share with you guys tonight.
Well, this is another thing that I learned when I was there, which is very difficult for me to ever bring up in church, which I have never brought up in church, ever. God loves everyone. And it isn't just Christians that God loves. God loves everyone, no matter what religion, no matter what, anything. I mean, obviously, let's take color, humans with different colors. I mean, obviously, we're God's children, so obviously we should all be loving each other. And as far as religion is concerned, I can't make any decisions about that other than the fact that I know that God loves all of us. And it isn't that he loves just Christians.
It's really funny because on one hand, because of what I now feel I know and what I feel I've learned, I think it would be safe to say that I have departed to some respect, what traditional Christianity, as we normally think of it, teaches. On another level, I feel like I've come to what traditional Christianity really is. And by traditional Christianity, I think I mean what I perceive Christ was talking about and the way that was being acted out in the 1st and 2nd century, as opposed to the way that it's acted out now. I'm not so sure that I'm not a more traditional Christian than I was in the religion I grew up with.
So you guys get the gist of these two things there. They're speaking to Christianity. The first woman, Barbara Springer, these are both near-death experiencers. She's saying she can't even talk in the churches about the idea of God loving everyone. I mean, that's kind of a sad statement. And then he's saying, well, you know, if I really had to kind of go back to square one and tell you what I really learned or what I feel about myself now, I would identify with kind of the pre-Christian Christians, what he really said. Okay, so I'm going to read a couple of quotes from the Bible, and I want you to listen to these quotes through the ears of near-death experiences. And you guys, almost all of you have been to the classes, so you've been hearing a lot of these things again and again and again, but you probably haven't heard it this way. And these are radical statements. These are deadly statements for this particular time period. For him to be saying stuff like this in his culture, this has serious consequences, and I'll explain a little bit of that in a minute. But
is this the Old Testament or the New Testament?
This is the New Testament. This is the first from Matthew. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Therefore, you are to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Okay, that's one huge theme in near-death experiences. God loves everybody. Christians, non-Christians, atheists, agnostics, mass murderers, rapists, killers. God loves everybody. Okay, second quote. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me. Again, this is a huge, dominant theme in near-death experiences. We're all one. When we have our life reviews on the other side, we don't just experience everything from our perspective. We experience things from the perspective of everybody we're in relationship. So again, literally, when Jesus says, as you treat others, you're treating me, that's exactly what's happening. We're all treating everyone we interact with the same way. Okay, a couple of more quotes from the Bible, New Testament. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. And Jesus said to him, have I been so long with you, and yet you have not come to know me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father. He who has seen me has seen the Father. And then finally, this is a killer one. Listen to this one. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you. Remember, the old commandments are pretty well established. Love God and love our neighbors. So he's saying, I'm giving you a new commandment. And the new commandment is that you love one another as I have loved you. And what does that mean? Well, that's meaning what we just said. That means love your enemy. That means everyone you treat is yourself. We're all one. That means you go and hang out with the tax collectors and the prostitutes and the sinners, and you eat with them, and you befriend them, and you love them. You don't keep yourself apart. Those are radical statements for this particular time period. Okay, so now what I want to do is quickly just mentioned 16 ways the historical Jesus and near-death experiences are similar. This is not a complete comprehensive list. It's just the 16 things that came to my mind. But now, and what I want you to do as you listen to these things, again, and remember one of my opening statement was, no other historical figure embodies the core truths found in near-death experiences as fully as Jesus. So listen as these things just start stacking up, and see if you can pick out any other historical figure that comes close to ticking off all these qualities. And so you're listening on the one hand, is there any other historical figure that has all these things nailed? And then number two, remembering how they show up in near-death experiences. Okay? First, Jesus experienced God as a personal presence. Jesus reportedly called God Abba, Papa. So it was a very intimate, close, friendly relationship Jesus had with God. God, in other words, wasn't an abstract, impersonal field of love for Jesus. It had personality. It knew every hair on our heads. It knew us and loved us in concrete ways. That's a very interesting thing. Jesus, the God Jesus knew, was personal. Second, Jesus insisted that God loves everyone. This is one of the things that may have gotten Jesus killed. For example, at the particular time he was born, the Jewish culture was considered a purity culture. And Ken, you can keep me on track if I waver a little bit here. And the idea was, in order to be saved, salvation depended upon you do not associate it with unclean people. Sinners, tax collectors, prostitutes, lepers are unclean people. And they're unclean because they're sinners, because they've done some bad thing and they're being punished by God. So in order to be saved as a person and as a nation, we do not associate it with these people. These are the outcasts of society. So we're talking about personal and collective salvation here. And so what does Jesus do? He goes out and befriends all these guys. He's having dinner, bringing all these guys to the table, the sinners, the tax collectors, all the outcasts, and he's bringing them in. So it's creating quite a stir. Third thing, Jesus indicated that God loves everyone wholeheartedly and unconditionally. There is nothing we can do that will cause God to stop loving us. He's not going to say, well, I'll love you if you do this and this and this, the Ten Commandments or something else. No, God's love is absolutely unconditional. He falls on the just and the unjust, the righteous and on the unrighteous. Okay, so that's another unique thing that Jesus is saying. Jesus clearly saw the imperfections in those he encountered, and he encouraged people to correct them. So, I mean, think about that for a second. We're not talking about a wishy-washy love here, where the love's just, oh, I just love you, I love you, I love you, but it actually is a force to come in and change us and transform us and hold us accountable for things, right? And if you look at near-death experiences, it's very clear. You have encounters with the light, and encounters with the light are the being that loves us completely unconditionally, and then there's the life review that comes along and reminds us all the ways we messed up, all the ways we can do better, all the ways we can become more godlike, so we're actually held accountable. So Jesus essentially is doing the same thing. He's going around and people are, sinning, and he's saying, that's not a very good idea, and he's encouraging them to clean up their act, to have a better life. But he's doing it in a really unique way, which is, this is number 5. While Jesus saw people where they fell short and encouraged them to do better, he insisted that we not judge or condemn anyone. Right? Let he who is without sin throw the first stone. So again, from a near-death experience perspective, we've got the light that's loving us unconditionally. We're being held accountable for all of our stuff, but it's all wrapped in a package of understanding and non-condemnation. It's encouraging us to do better. Jesus indicated that God not only believes everyone is worth saving, but is actively pursuing those who have strayed. So the life and parables of Jesus are full of that. They're going after these guys. They're trying to track down everyone that's kind of gone astray and bring them back. So God's not a hands-off type God. That makes sense? Okay. The stories we have of Jesus are full of God and his messengers intervening in the lives of people. The God that Jesus knew, in other words, was not content to simply sit on a cloud somewhere and watch everything from a distance. He and his messengers often showed up in dreams, in visions, in visitations, right? The New Testament is full of this. So think about that. I mean, this idea that God is active in our life and he's coming after us and he's trying to help us, you know, and we see these stories all over near-death experiences. And a lot of times they'll show up in a hellish type situation. Remember, you've got the people in hell and they're bowed over, they're caved in on their own misery and their own suffering. And right above them are these legions of angels that are just, please look up and ask for our help. We're right here to help you. So they are there, they are present, they are actively trying to be of help, but they require us to look up and call out for help. And again and again and again in near-death experiences, we see that exact formula working out. Okay, number 8. Success, according to Jesus, is not measured by material possessions or worldly accomplishments. That's a pretty big one, right? Instead, success is measured by how lovingly we treat our fellow human beings. Again, it's epidemic in near-death experiences. People come back somehow, and they start finding ways to be of service, to love people, so that they change from a materialistic focus to more of a spiritual focus. And of course, that's, again, a very dominant theme in near-death experiences. Okay, Jesus insisted that the kingdom of God is what's real, while this world is a passing phenomenon. Number 10, Jesus insisted that the kingdom of God is here now. It's present everywhere if we just have eyes to see it. Okay, number 11, according to Jesus, we are all connected to one another. Everything we do to one another, we do to ourselves and Him. We've already talked about that. Number 12, Jesus was a healer. He healed people of all kinds of things, right? Near-death experiences are full of healings. All kinds of encounters with the light. In whatever form it appears, there's healing after healing after healing, including people literally, one more time, literally raising from the dead. So Jesus was a healer, and there are examples of miraculous healings all over the NDE world. Jesus was an exorcist. He was renowned as an exorcist. And if you guys came to class number 3, you know that there are evil spirits in the world, humans who are chosen, destructive ways that are influencing all of us all the time. They're messing with us. And they show up in the psychiatric world, with people hearing voices, and they're actually discarnates of various kind. We had a whole class talking about some of that stuff. So that kind of makes sense now. That Jesus is an exorcist because he's aware of not just this world, but all these other unseen worlds, which we know now on the most basic level. If we're just talking about bacteria, there's all kinds of forces that are affecting us that we can't see. And the same on the spiritual levels. So the guy was an exorcist and was renowned as an exorcist. Okay, number 15. Jesus may also have had the ability to control nature and the other elements, meaning he really understood the world as a dream and knew how to work with things. And finally, number 16, last one. An encounter with Jesus changed lives, often in very dramatic ways. Relationships ended. Careers changed. Old ways of thinking were given up and new ways adopted. People became less interested in material things. Again, a massive echo to exactly what happens to near-death experiencers. When they go to the other side, they encounter the kingdom, they encounter the light. What happens to them? Their whole life is upended. Their lives change, their relationship shifts, everything changes. So again, Jesus was that kind of force in people's lives. Okay, does that all make sense to people? It's kind of, when you think about it, it's pretty darn overwhelming, isn't it? To think of all the different things this guy has in common with what we now know about near-death experiences around the world. So now we're going to put some meat on this with some more great stories. The first story we're going to hear is Dr. George Ritchie. And I want to start with George Ritchie because he, of course, was the guy that had the near-death experience that Raymond Moody heard about. He was a colleague of Raymond Moody's. When Raymond Moody heard his story, that's what prompted him to start investigating near-death experiences and eventually write Life After Life. And the dedication of that book, if I remember correctly, is dedicated to Dr. George Ritchie, who first did. So, and his encounter was a major encounter with Jesus. So now we're going to hear just a couple of snippets from a couple of different talks he did, talking about what happened when he encountered Jesus.
And I suddenly realized that body is dead. And I'm too young to die. I'm only 20 years of age. And then all of a sudden I thought the light at the head end of the room was getting brighter. but it was growing in an intensity of light to where if you turned on 1,000,000 welders' lights, you'd have some idea of the intensity. 3 things happened at the exact same moment. Something deep inside of my spiritual being, not the corpse lying over in the bed, said, stand up, you're in the presence of the Son of God. At that exact same instant, out of this brilliant light stepped the most amazing being I have ever met. And those hospital walls virtually disappeared. I saw every single minute detail of my life, everything I had ever done in public and private, from seeing my own cesarean section birth through my 20th year when I was pronounced dead. And he threw a question, what had I done with my life? And I thought, well, I'm an Eagle Scout. Immediately he shot back, that glorified you. And the same question again, what have you done with your life? Now over there in that realm, there is no such thing as hypocrisy, because one of the first things that you become aware of is that the other being is totally aware of what you think, so you can't think one thing and say another. There's no such thing as misunderstanding what he meant. And yet, here was a being that knew everything about me, and he totally accepted me and he totally loved me. Now that blew my mind.
What happened to you?
Well, I was in the Army. I was 20 years of age, and I was pronounced dead from double whole heart pneumonia. They know that I was dead 9.5 minutes because he told the ward boy to take me to the morgue, but the ward boy thought he saw something move, so he asked him to come back and check me over, and he told him I was just as dead the second time as I was the first. And then he did give a shot of adrenaline directly into the heart, and 4 days later I became humanly conscious again.
What happened during those 9 minutes? Who did you see? What happened?
John, this is why I've written this book.
Yes.
I met the Christ because I was told to stand up. You're in the presence of the Son of God. He came into my room, and he conducted me through 4 different realms of life after death. He really brought out 3 things that changed my life, and I think was the major reason he told me I had to come back, because I didn't want to come back here.
You didn't want to come back?
No, I absolutely did not.
What are the 3 things?
All right, the first thing, can you imagine being in the room with somebody who knows every single minute detail of your life and totally accepts you and totally loves you? And that's the first wonderful thing. I found out that the one person I'd been always taught to judge the quick and the dead was in the loving department instead of the judging department. The next thing that he showed me by taking me through 4 different realms of life after death is that you and my Father doesn't send us any place. The type of life we live here determines where we're going when we leave here.
It does determine?
Yes.
All right.
He doesn't send us to heaven or hell or purgatory or anything else. But you don't leave, say, kindergarten here and start to university. You've got to go through grade school, intermediate school, high school, and the type of grades you make your interest determine which university you're going to.
So if you're a bastard, you don't get a good hereafter.
No, you
Cheer me up.
You really don't.
Yeah.
I don't think in your case I have to cheer you
No, but I know a lot of people. I just want to make sure we're not going to meet again so fast. Go ahead.
Well, let me put it this way. Over here we have a saying, birds of a feather flock together.
Right.
Over there you have to flock together because it's too embarrassing to be with people who don't think the same way you do.
And George is going, that's right.
And you have mental telepathy over there, so you can't take somebody for a ride with your thoughts. What you actually think is instantaneously aware to them.
Right.
So you go to whatever realm you're best suited to go to.
All right. What? So now, give me the 3 things again,
All right. First, that we really do have, because Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen what the Father is like. We have a God of love.
A God of love.
Who's always for our good interest.
All right. Second?
Second, that there are many different realms of life after death, not just 2.
Right.
But we go, depending on what type of life and what our interest is here, depends on where we start off over there.
And the third?
Third, that life really is forever. We don't die. Death is nothing more than just a gateway through which we go.
Okay, did you guys get that, those 3 things? Number 1, God is a God of love. Remember how he said it blew my mind that he knew everything about me and he still loved me unconditionally. God is a God of love. Secondly, there are many different realms in the afterlife. The way we have lived our lives, the vibration that we embody is what determines where we go and what experiences we have when we leave this world. We hear that a lot in these experiences. Okay, and the third thing is we are eternal beings. We live forever. Okay. The next video we're going to play is not a near-death experience. It's of a woman who had an encounter with Jesus in her life, and which brings up another really critical point, is we're not just talking about historical Jesus. We're talking about a living presence that is still appearing to people and changing their lives in various ways. So this woman's name is Lynn Breshaw.
God is just amazing. It's just amazing that he would just care about a dancer, an alcoholic, a drug addict. He would just care so much that he would just pour himself on me like he did. It was just amazing that I was accepted and loved because I wasn't all my life. Nobody cared about me my whole life, and here this big God cared about me. So, if he can reach into somebody's life like me, I was like, I was low life. That's what people would say. Oh, there's a low life. I didn't have any worth. If he could reach into a life like mine, he can reach into anybody's life. And he can speak the most beautiful words when you feel like you're nothing. He's just amazing. Thank you. And this is his testimony, and I don't regret anything that I went through because I know that this testimony is to help other people find him. I know that that's what this was for. I know that women that have been abused, that they're going to realize that they don't deserve to be abused. I know that women that have been molested, women that have been raped, women that are dancers, that they are somebody, that they're actually a person that God cares about. And anybody can come to him. No, he won't turn anybody away. It's like Patricia says, he does love everybody with an everlasting love, everybody. And when you receive his love, you love other people like he loves you. And it's just amazing. You don't want to judge people anymore because you just want to love and help everybody. Your heart just cries out to everybody that you meet, and your life is changed.
So you can really get the flavor of her testimony. Imagining she's back in first century Palestine, she's an outcast. The same experience those people were having being brought in and loved by Jesus is the same kind of experience these near-death experiencers are reporting, this complete, unconditional love. And by the way, as you guys know from other classes, there are two main things that completely transform people that have near-death experiences. And the first is an encounter with the light where you feel completely, absolutely loved just the way you are. And this being knows everything about you, so there's not some little dark corner somewhere that's hidden away that it doesn't know about. It knows everything, and in spite of that, it completely loves us. And the second thing that transforms us is a life review where we see our whole life and we understand we're connected with other people. So I think she kind of embodies the spirit of the outcast and also how powerful it is to love people that society frowns upon and pushes away. The impact you can have on a person's life. I mean, just think about that for a second. If we could spend a significant amount of our time reaching out to other people that are disenfranchised by our culture and giving them to some degree that kind of experience, it can be life-changing. And again, from a near-death experience perspective, when a person looks at their life review, often it's those little moments where someone says something kind and thoughtful to a cashier. No big deal. You're just a busy day, but you took the time to make a contact with that person who's struggling in their life and say something kind to them to lift their burden, just like this woman, saying something nice to the outcast, to the lowly people that don't deserve any time, can completely change their life. And in life reviews, often those are the events that people point out as, this was the most significant of all the things in my whole life. It was this one simple, heartfelt act of kindness that made the whole universe ring. So that's what we're after. Now we're going to hear a little bit of Howard Storm, and now we're going to go for a walk on the wild side.
What were some of the most amazing insights that you had while you were over there about the universe and about life and the purpose of it?
I believe that Jesus is the perfect revelation of God, that he is a persona of God to help us understand God and know God. And so some of the characteristics of Jesus, and this also goes for the angels, the other people there, all have a terrific sense of humor. They love to laugh. They like to joke. They're very happy, joyful people, interested in being light and funny, and they are very, very, very forgiving. They don't like the nasty things that we do, but they understand that that's part of our learning experience. That's who we are, and that's what we do. And they're hoping that through our negative experiences that we ultimately turn those into positive qualities. So they're very hopeful. What they want is for us to ultimately come to heaven, to grow and to evolve in heaven, to become beautiful spiritual beings like they are. So ultimately our ambition is to become more and more like Christ.
Was there any talk of life on other planets?
Oh yes, I asked about life on other planets, and Jesus said that the universe was full of life, and there was just an incalculable amount of life and intelligent life on other planets. And I said, what do they look like? And so he said, here, I'll show you. And so he paraded images of beings from other planets, and the parade began with human-like beings who began to, as the parade went by, they became more and more different than us. And finally, I was looking at people that looked more like undersea creatures or insects or something, and I said, okay, that's enough. I don't want to see anymore. It's getting a little weird here. It was creepy.
Wow. And do you think Jesus has visited those planets? I mean, do they look up to Jesus?
I asked him, and he said he's been everywhere. He's been to every planet, but not the Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus. I mean, he didn't go there as a young Jewish male guy. I mean, he went in their form. He was relatable in every world that he was in.
Okay. Have you ever? I mean, what were some of the things that happened to you while over there that you've not spoken about on air before? Is there anything you've not mentioned before?
Yeah, I get in lots of trouble when I go into the things that I don't talk about, because it's funny that the
you're past the watershed. Don't worry.
Yeah, the world isn't so ready to know things. Like, for example, I don't know if I've talked about this on air, but I have talked about it before, that we only use a tiny fraction of our brain. Like, I understand it's about 10%. And Jesus said that we have abilities and powers built into us genetically, into our biology, to do things like teleport throughout the universe, to have we could in this world be linked to every other intelligent being in this universe. We could grow our food by sitting down and contemplating it and watching it grow right before our eyes, from like a seed to an edible plant. We could control the weather in unison with everybody else in the world. There's all that's waiting for us. The problem is, the reason why we don't have those gifts now, why we're being held back from them, is because we would abuse them. Look at the gifts that the gifts of since the Age of Enlightenment that we've been given, and how we are totally abusing them. Like nuclear energy, for example. I mean, we don't know how to play with the toys that we've been given so far. So it's quite obvious that we are not ready to be able to telepathically know everyone on this planet. But the day is coming, and it's not very far off, frankly.
Is he coming from a Christian background?
Howard Storm was a raging atheist before he had his near-death experience. And he has one of the best hell experiences on record in terms of, hell full on with the demons and, the dark places and all that stuff. So he was saved in hell by calling out for Jesus, God, Jesus loves me. He's trying to remember anything. He couldn't hardly remember anything because he wasn't really indoctrinated or raised as a Christian, but he managed to put together a few words, enough to get Jesus to come down and pull him out of there. So his whole experience after he left hell was basically spending what seemed like, I believe, if I remember correctly, years, it felt like years on the other side talking to Jesus and the angels. So he's got all kinds of great stories. So I'm going to recap some of the things he said, which are fantastic. And of course, you guys have been hearing it all through this class. One is, he said he believed that Jesus is the perfect revelation of God. He is a persona of God to help us understand God and know God. We've been hearing that tonight. That's great. Jesus and the angels have a terrific sense of humor. Right? That's a superpower. That's an NDE superpower. Have a sense of humor. And remember, I've speculated in previous classes that the more evolved we are spiritually, the better and more refined our sense of humor is. We can laugh at things more. And that makes sense because we can see things from a higher perspective. We're not rolling around here on the earth plane so much anymore. Things don't look so awful from a higher perspective. Everything makes sense. So from that level, it's pretty fun. So your sense of humor, he said that, and many other people have said that too. God, Jesus, these divine beings have a great, wonderful sense of humor. They're very, very, very forgiving and understand that the negative or nasty, he used the word nasty, experiences we go through are just part of our growth. So again, there's understanding, there's an encouragement, come on, let's do a little better here, but there's also complete acceptance and understanding for the condition we're in. What they want for us ultimately is for us to evolve and become more Christ-like beings, more spiritual beings. Then the universe is full of life. We hear that again and again and again in near-death experiences. The universe is full of life. Don't hear this everywhere, though. Is Jesus everywhere? Well, yes, Jesus is everywhere. He gets this parade of all the beings, and then he says, and the critical point is that he's not appearing in all these worlds as Jesus of Nazareth, a Jewish carpenter, which is, so the point is that what he's suggesting, and of course I don't know whether it's true or not, but what he's suggesting is that the light in every realm of existence goes into some kind of embodiment, so the beings in that realm can have an understanding about what they need to do to manifest their divine nature. That's really an interesting thought. And if you reflect back on it again, this whole idea of what does the light look like in practical application? It's hard for us to know. I mean, people have been guessing all the time. Who would have guessed some guy would show up, 2,000 years ago and start upending a lot of the Jewish culture based on Old Testament prophets, saying, I want you to hang out with the tax collectors and all these other guys. Who would have thought that that's how God would express itself? So it shows up in really unexpected ways. And so that's why having an embodiment of this force seems to be so important. Okay, then the part, we have abilities and powers built in to do things like Jesus supposedly did. Still the storms, walk on water, however many of those are true. We seem to have, and we know again from near-death experiences that all kinds of weird things can happen when you get into those altered, powerful states where you're plugged in to the universal energy. So he's saying more of that's coming. Now, one thing I need to tell you guys, which is really important, it's going to be a kind of a subtitle to this whole class, or subtext, and that is the idea that a lot of Christians have experiences on the other side, not just Christians, other people too, and they come back and they're very dogmatic with what their views are, right? And so if you have a Christian mindset, you go across over to the other side, there's a good chance you could come back and think, look, I'm sorry to tell you this news, but you have to believe in Jesus or you're going to hell. And so they start violating some of the prime directives, with the fire and brimstone, all this kind of judgmental, some people are better than others kind of talk. And so what's that all about? Well, here's what Howard Storm said about him. When he seems like a pretty grounded, humble guy now. I've listened to a lot of his interviews, and he's very he's very humble. Humble is the one thing. That guy has got some humility because he's been down all the way, and come back up. So he came back up with some serious humility, and now after years into it of telling his story and living it out in his life, he's got some real humility. But what he said initially is when he came back after his experience, I was a raging fanatic. I drove my wife and my 2 teenage children very far away from me by being so obnoxious about their conversion. So the point is, even though you can have these experiences and get a lot of universal truths, doesn't mean that you really understand what's going on or that you can embody it. It takes time to let it soak in, penetrate, take a nice bath with it before you can finally, live your life and try out some of these things on other human beings and see what happens. Here's another great experience. This is another near-death experience.
Everything was light. Everything was light, and that light was permeating love, permeating an unconditional love, permeating an effervescence, happiness. Actually, every single emotion that's positive was actually in that light. There was no negative emotion, no stress. It was just permeating light. And coming towards me comes a translucent being of light. And he comes towards me, and I know instantly, it's a knowing that this is Christ. It's Jesus. And he comes towards me in the form of a spirit. So he was just moving around like when you look at a flame in the fire, you see the flame moving very freely in every direction. Well, that was exactly the movement, but instead of fire, it was light. And he had a face above. It was just like an energy of light, and he had a translucent form. So he came towards me, he and she. It was not a he. We always think of Jesus or Christ as a male figure. It was actually a she and a he in once. And I always say that it's actually love. On earth, we have the male love and we have the female love. Woman's love, motherly love, father's love. And actually, both of them were blended into one perfect love. So when I saw Christ, it was a she and a he in once. It was like the love of the ideal parents at once. It was like as if you were a child and you're 4 years old and you're on your parents' laps and you feel like nothing can happen because they are actually protecting you. And that's exactly the feeling I had. It's actually being embraced. And he embraced me, Jesus embraced me, and actually he wrapped me around him. That flame, that energy was just wrapping me completely, and I felt completely loved. I felt completely cherished and taken care of. There was a goodness, compassion, tenderness, affection, everything an ideal parent is. Actually, I felt as he was wrapping me around him and around her. At that point, I said to Jesus, I don't want to go back. I just said, first before that, I knew that he wanted me to go back on earth. So I said, I don't want to go back on earth. I said, I really don't want to go to that place again. I said, it's a horrible place. People are mean. In general, not everybody, and no one here. Many people are mean, selfish, self-centered. I just don't like that world. I want to stay here. I'm home. I just want to stay here. And I don't want to go back. And actually, I sensed that he said, you have to go back. So I just said, I plead another time, and I said, I don't want to go back because I'm beyond exhaustion. My body is technically not possible. It's not possible to go back into my body. I'm technically beyond exhaustion, physically and emotionally. I don't want to go back. And then at that moment, instead of me of me staying there, he shifted from here and he went there, expanded into at least miles. Actually, he was completely huge in the universe. And he was just it's like a huge hologram, but a solid one. And he said, Yvonne, I'll fill you with my power and my love. I'll fill you with my energy of life. And as he said that, there was an energy, a liquid energy that filled completely my body, my bones, my muscles. I felt it in my body, and I felt it in my spiritual body at the same time, simultaneously. When that was done, Jesus said to me, Christ, and it's the universal Christ. I'm not talking about a religious who is actually very selective. It's the love, the unconditional love, regardless of who you are. He said to me, Yvonne, it was a being of light that George Ritchie saw. And he said, Yvonne, I love people. I love humanity. I love people. I love humanity. And I said, yes, you are Christ. No wonder. I was thinking that in my mind. And in heaven, everything is telepathically. There is no speaking like we're speaking today here with our mouth. It's all from thought to thought, and even more from knowing to knowing. It's not even projecting a thought. It's immediately we are knowing what's happening. So it's very fast. And there is no place for misunderstanding and conflicts. It's perfect. So he said, I love my people. And I said, oh, yeah. And I imagine so. And he said, he came to teach love on earth. So he says, I'll show you how. So at that moment, he took my heart and he put it in his heart. We merged the two energy. My heart merged in his heart. And many people that have been in the other side know that it's a normal process in heaven. I said heaven, I prefer to say heaven than the other side. It sounds creepy, the other side. Heaven sounds really like positive. So, and everybody can relate to it. It projects a location. And then so his heart and mind blended together, and we became one. It's like we put in a shaker, and we became one. It's a merge, a complete merge. And we were one, really one. We experienced the oneness, and for a moment, and please don't think I'm a freaky person, for a moment, I was Christ. Because his emotion, his feeling, everything he had for humanity and for all of us, actually I could feel it, I could sense it, I could think, I was him. And in heaven, it's a very normal process. When somebody dies and goes to heaven, sometimes people will ask them, oh, what was your life on earth? And can I merge with you to see? And then when they merge, they are the other person with all the memories of what happened, so they can really experience what a person experienced on earth. And it was just the most amazing experience, and that's the only experience I cannot put words on, because it was river and waves and billions of compassion and tenderness and love and unity and that was actually projected on the whole earth and in the universe, in the galaxies, in multiple dimensions. It's the most amazing experience, and we are so loved. We've forgotten it because we're here. We have blocked our memory, but we are extremely loved, and we are extremely beautiful and loving beings beside this earth here. And so that's it. And I knew at some point I knew my time was up, and here it's up too. So, and I came back. Thank you.
What a treat that was.
Is that good?
Where's she from?
Now, I had to cut it out because I didn't have time to get all of it in, but I'll put it up on the website. But she started with, the people down there, I don't want to go back, it's a nightmare. The first thing she says, I don't want to go back because I've got a bad relationship with my boyfriend. It's really uncomfortable. And Jesus said, we need to leave. you know? She said she saw a board where it had no checked, you know, you need to move on because you're, and she said there was complete love for both of them, for him and her, so it wasn't you need to leave him because he's bad, it was leave him because they were vibrating at different levels. That's the first thing she was told. The second complaint was, my body's a wreck. I can't go back because my body's wiped out. And so Jesus said, well, we'll fix that. So fixed her body. And then the third thing, of course, is like, well, but how am I going to go back and be with all those human beings that are just so mean and stuff? Well, here, I'll show you. So he takes her heart, merges the heart so she can see what these failing, miserable, nitpicky, nasty little human beings look like from a divine perspective. And she doesn't say it in this particular clip, but she says it in other written things. Jesus calls us his babies. And she's just filled with love for the babies. These babies are so beautiful. And of course, many other near-death experiencers also report this same theme, that the higher beings look at us as like comical toddlers. You know, I remember Amy Call. She talked a lot like that. So from a higher perspective, we are glorious in including all of our human failings is glorious. It's all part of this greater plan, and from a higher perspective, we know that. So she got to slip into the heart of the cosmic Jesus and see everything from that level, and then she sent back. Now, did you notice how many of these people have been saying, I do not want to go back? Of course, that's another epidemic theme in near-death experiences when you're on the other side. And it doesn't matter if you've got little children, you've got a loving relationship, how great your life is, it doesn't matter. Almost none of them want to come back. I don't know what the percentage is, but only a very small percent actually say, yeah, let me go back. I want to get in there. What typically happens is I don't want to go back, and then they're just forced to go back. Or they'll say, I don't want to go back, and they're shown why they need to go back and the good they can do with their life and what's waiting for them in the future, or the consequences of them not going back. What will happen to their loved ones if they don't return? So, but the end result is, of course, all the people that we hear about have got the message they have to come back and do come back, or we wouldn't hear their stories, but that's in their common theme. Okay, so that's going to pretty much wrap up the Jesus part of things. I just want to be sure you guys get the main theme I'm trying to communicate, which is the light becoming, we have two experiences of light. Light not embodied, where it's just an encounter with the light. It can change into any kind of form. It changes into whatever form we might like it to be so we can understand and relate to it. That's one cosmic kind of feeling of the light. And the second one is where the light actually comes into our world and takes on a body and becomes a person like us and shows us the way viscerally. And what I'm suggesting, the evidence seems to say Jesus is that guy for us. I could be wrong about that, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in the end. Actually, no, I'm going to tell you about it now. So we'll keep on task here. And I will have links on this that if you want to learn more about historical Jesus, there's a great talk by a guy named Gary Habermas. And how many of you are not sure, honest, it's okay, there's no penalty, no buzzer's going to go off. How many of you are honestly not sure if Jesus really lived? You're not really sure how solid the historical record is. Oh, you're all pretty solid, huh? Okay, good. Got one honest person here. Okay, so that's what a lot of people think. A lot of people think we really don't know much about Jesus historically, so, did the guy really even live? And if he did, what did he actually say and do? It turns out we actually know an awful lot about Jesus, and he's one of the most thoroughly documented from a historical standpoint figures. And so this guy, Gary Habermas, actually goes through and breaks it all down, comparing other historical figures with what we actually know of Jesus, and traces it back to the records we have, which trace back to the first century and eyewitnesses who were there on the spot saying what happened. He tells all how that happened. So that's number one. Number two, in his talk, also it's drilled in this idea that if you're a legitimate Jesus scholar, meaning you've really looked at the evidence, number one, you have to conclude the guy exists because the evidence is overwhelming. Compared to any other historical person, it's completely overwhelming. Number two, something very dramatic happened to this guy. And there's all these reasons why, and he talks about some of that. And of course, whether he thinks he rose from the dead, and there's evidence to support that, but so there's historical evidence to back up a lot of what I'm saying, in other words, tonight. There's something about this guy that's different from most of the other folks we know about historically. So he goes in and lays out the case for that historically from a scholarly perspective. The Mustard Seed Venture is a network that's going up sometime soon, and their focus has been to try to figure out more about this historical Jesus. What do we really know, digging back through the records so we can get an accurate reading of what this guy actually did 2,000 years ago and what we can learn from that. They've got a fabulous social network up and running now, and it will be available to everyone who wants to join soon. And it's got the best of the best scholars, commentary, going into all the stuff that I'm talking about now and just murdering, with not even exploring it at all. But those are the guys to talk to if you want to learn more about what we really know about the historical Jesus from a scholarly perspective and what we can do with that information on a day-to-day basis to make our lives better. Okay. Another new website is called Encounters with Jesus. It's a website I put together, and that website is about current encounters with Jesus, modern encounters with Jesus, and ancient encounters with Jesus. So I'm trying to gather the best of the best Jesus stories and get them all up on that website. So there's a lot of great stories up there now, and that website is linked on the NHNE resource sheet that's back there. You can look on it, you'll see one of them says Encounters with Jesus. Go to that website and you'll be totally delighted with the stories that are there. And again, a lot of these stories are trying to look at Jesus through the kind of eyes we've been talking about tonight. It's not the dogmatic, fire and brimstone Jesus. Okay. And
where's the information on the first thing you mentioned? The guy's name, Gary?
Yeah, it's on. If you go to the Encounters with Jesus website, you'll find a link for him there. And finally, those of you that are fans of the Shroud of Turin, there's a whole page up there about the Shroud of Turin that you guys can learn more about that. That's one physical artifact we have that many people believe is proof not only that Jesus existed, but that also some kind of resurrection may have taken place. So, again, Jesus seems wishy-washy until you actually get in and start doing the research, and then you figure out, and then you find out, man, there's something really happened here. It's very significant. Okay, so now we're going to switch channels, and then we're going to circle back around. Okay, what we're going to do now is I've got an 11-minute video to show you. It's Emanuel Swedenborg, and I've introduced him in previous classes. He's extremely smart. He's one of the smartest people ever on the planet from an IQ standpoint. And the guy lived a very long time in an altered state. We're in between worlds, where he was in this world and in the other world. He's having all these conversations with angels. It was sparked by a near-death-like experience that sent him over, and he never fully came back to this world. He had one foot in both worlds from then on. And so he explored all these things. Kenneth Ring, who is a famous near-death experience researcher, author, says this about Emanuel Swedenborg. People who have had near-death experiences peek through the door of the afterlife, but Swedenborg explored the whole house. And Raymond Moody chimes in, Carl Jung chimes in, Ralph Waldo Emerson chimes in. Basically anybody who's wrestled with these big questions knows about Emanuel Swedenborg, and Swedenborg has a lot of really unique contributions. So the contribution we're going to be listening to tonight is, well, yeah, this Jesus guy's sounds pretty great, but what about all the other religions in the world? I mean, what's going on there? What are we supposed to do with them? And so I chopped this 45-minute video down to 11 minutes, and so we're going to watch this 11-minute murdered version, but hopefully you'll get the essence from it. We'll talk about that a little bit, and I'll have links out to the full version if you want to watch that later. But
is that on the net, or you had to buy it from the Swedenborg Society?
No. They're making all their stuff available for free, including books. Wow. They have free PDF version. Yeah, they're great. They're doing great work right now. Okay, so here we go. And Curtis is the guy who's going to be leading the charge here. He is super funny. You guys are going to love him.
We called this episode How Different Religions Coexist in Heaven. And right there, if I came across it on the web, my first thought might be, come on, man. Enough of this like kumbaya stuff. Religions fight. It's what they do. Plus, why do some people act like they know something about what happens after death? Nobody knows that. Well, I'm totally sorry, but I'm about to make it a lot worse. Because not only are we going to assert that religious groups coexist in heaven, we're going to amp it up and say that having different religions improves heaven. And that actually, heaven couldn't be heaven without these differences. My name is Curtis. I'm with the Swedenborg Foundation. Nonprofit group is the Swedenborg Foundation that wants to probably help people understand Swedenborg's ideas, get Swedenborg's ideas out there with the overarching goal that this is somehow going to do some good. What is the religion issue? It would be this. When I say religion, we don't all say, yeah, that's great. Cool, right? A lot of people have a reaction to that word. There's a lot of negative reaction to that, and there's a good reason for that. All kinds of negative things associated with religions. Obviously, wars, killings, especially right now, those are prominent. They're all over the news, but there's internal issues too. There are all kinds of scandals, abuse, all this stuff. So what you're probably saying is how you take religions and put them together. It doesn't seem like heaven to me. So how is that a heavenly thing? And to get at that, we've got to talk about what heaven is in the first place. Now, as Swedenborg describes it, heaven and hell are not just places, they're states of mind. And if you can realize that, it makes the rest of it make a lot more sense. But if that still doesn't make sense, we can turn to the place we always turn to when things get confusing or scary, and that is to a pie chart. So we have a pie chart here, and this is how some people want to break up the world. You say, oh, well, there's Christians and there's Muslims and there's non-religious people and so on and so on. But really, that's not a good way to break it up. A more accurate way would be this. I talked about there's a heavenly mindset and a hellish mindset, and we labeled it with these trite words, nice and mean. So I would argue, and the crux of the show is that you look at the left column, nice Christians, nice Muslims, nice non-religious people have more in common than nice Christians and mean Christians have in common. So if you break the world up like that into the heavenly mindset within all these different groups and the hellish mindset within all these different groups, then you start to get a more accurate dividing line. Think of somebody who's all these different traditions and someone who's really nice, empathetic, enlightened, open-minded from each of these. Think of those all together in a room. And don't you think they could vibe pretty well? So that's the setup. Now that we got the religion issue out of the way, let's talk about the sympathetic friend. We're going to crack open some Swedenborg. This is from Heaven and Hell, number 56. And this is about the nature of what heaven is, because we got to get a little more into that to move things along. Further still, heaven is where the Lord is recognized, trusted, and loved. The different ways he is worshipped, in variations that stem from the difference of activity from one community to another, do not cause harm, but bring benefit, because they are a source of heaven's perfection. It is hard to explain this in such a way that it can be grasped without resorting to expressions usually found in academic circles and using them to explain how a perfect whole is formed from a variety of elements. And so that's code for, watch out, this is going to be boring or complicated or hard to listen to. But we have to go in there anyway, because what he says next is kind of the foundation for the whole rest of the show. But to make it more palatable, we put like music and graphics to it. So here's me like narrating it with a visual representation. Every perfect whole arises from a variety of elements. For a whole that is not composed of a variety of elements is not really anything. It has no form, and therefore no quality. However, when a whole does arise from a variety of elements, and the elements are in a perfected form in which each associates with the next in the series like a sympathetic friend, then it has a perfect quality. Okay, in case you fell asleep for that little part, let me recap. There was a bunch of circles, and circles can't make a complex machine that achieves a complex purpose because they just kind of bounce off each other. Right? But when you look at a watch and the gears and the screws and the little metal platelet things, what they can all go together in this form that makes it so they can do something as cool as tell time. I don't know if anybody wears watches anymore, but they look really cool on the inside. So we wanted to use that as an example. Things that are different working together make cooler stuff. And he said at the end, you can see this because there's this mirror in the physical world of what happens in the spiritual world. Let's see where it shows up in bigger, broader fields of study. The first one I want to take a look at is ecological diversity, and I went and asked an ecologist how this works.
So ecosystems are the environment and all the species that live there. And each ecosystem has its number of niches or places where species can be useful. And that's partly determined by the environment, how much water, soil, what the climate is like, and partly by time, how many species have been able to come in and work together. But we find when we study ecosystems that the ecosystems that are the most long-lasting and the most resilient to changes are the most diverse ecosystems.
So the way that Swedenborg describes it, something becomes more and more perfect based on sort of three things: the quality of the elements that it's made up of, the form those elements are in, and the purpose the whole thing is serving. And he's saying that heaven is the most perfect thing because those three elements, or those three subcategories of it, are the most perfect things. But let's take a look at how these different religions come into play and why they're useful in different ways. So let's look at Christianity, right? So picture that little ball in the center as a human mind. And around it, you have everything that comes with the package deal of Christianity. And remember, we're talking here about the good side of it, right? We already talked about how there's a whole bunch of stuff that you'd love to kind of jettison. But right now, we're just talking about what's good. And that's what makes it into the heaven mindset. You think about the kind of community around Christianity, even the aesthetic, what the teachings focus on, what the personal practice focuses on, and all that could go together to form a human mind in a certain way. It influences and makes somebody into a certain kind of shape, right? If we're sticking with our watch analogy. Takes a different tradition like Buddhism, and there's a different set of principles there. You know, in some branches, there's this focus on non-attachment or discipline of the mind. There are different kinds of rituals that you do. Different things, different feel, forms a different kind of mind. Right, so you have that one there. Let's talk about what we call New Age now, which a lot of it is stuff from ancient sort of traditions with like a modern spin, but there's a lot of new stuff in there. Just think about how somebody who's really into that stuff, that forms their mind in a certain way. And it doesn't just have to be like religion type stuff. Things we do in life. Think about the study of mathematics, or the study of music, or learning how to use your hands and work with stuff. All that goes in, and you could just tell from people you know, that forms the kind of person they are. So once you have all these different people, they all can play these different parts in the machine. And that's, you know, in a good way, not like, oh, I'm part of the machine, man, but in part of this like wonderful machine. And if you had people that were only one, if there was only wheels, you couldn't have the watch. And Swedenborg is saying that you have to have these different kinds of people because nobody can do it all on their own, and we need people to pick up all these different tasks. Because if you really had everybody in the world accepting this principle that we're all part of this unity, and actually our differences help out, you'd see an end to a lot of horrible stuff. So that's one side of the thing, but looking at the other side, just in a practical sense, the more we understand this principle, the better division of labor works, meaning like back in prehistory when we decided, okay, you know what? You go do this and I'm going to go do this because I'm good at this and you're good at that, and we'll share what we get out of it. You know, and the more that that's effectively leveraged in organizations, the better organizations you get that can do more complex things. But the way that it struck me as something different is kind of in the subtleties of how I think about other people. And not like, it doesn't have to be, when thinking about people that are different than you, it doesn't have to be something obvious or blatant like race or religion. It can just be like, what do I think about people that don't know how to play guitar? Or what do I think about people that aren't very good at math, or something like that, you know? Or people that have sort of a different affect than me or a different style, do I kind of like marginalize those people? Do I sort of look down on them? Probably, subconsciously or effortlessly. But this is really getting me to think, not only are those people necessary, but like I owe them something because they're pulling a portion of the weight of humanity that I need them to be doing. So I don't know if that sounds like cool or profound to you, but to me, I was like, oh yeah, these I owe them a little bit of a debt because they're doing something that I need done, even if physically I don't see the connection, that there is this kind of broader spiritual connection. So I thought that was cool, and I want to leave it with this thought from Heaven and Hell, number 71. Every community in heaven is growing in numbers daily, and the more perfect it becomes. In this way, not only is the community perfected, but heaven in general is perfected as well, since the communities constitute heaven. So the more people are doing the heaven thing, the better it gets. And as we said in the beginning, heaven is this mindset. So the more of us buy into it, and obviously it's not like, oh, you got the heaven mindset or you don't. We fluctuate between these all the time, the selfish or the selfless mindset all the time. But the more often more of us are choosing the good side, the better it gets for everyone. So I feel like that's encouraging, and the more people are buying in, the stronger it gets, the more good it can accomplish.
Did that make sense to everybody? How all the religions serve their purpose, but the important point, if you're listening carefully, how all these things are all the dots are kind of getting connected, meaning one of the big themes in near-death experiences, which is kind of surprising, is that every single person is vital, important. They play a role in the grand scheme of things. And that's one reason Jesus, God, is willing to chase after whoever's out there to bring them back to the fold, because we all have something vital we contribute. And the point Curtis was making towards the end, that not just on a big global scale with the world's religions have a vital role to play in the cosmic plan, but every single person we encounter, including that person down the street that we just don't like very much or think very much about, or maybe is acting out in various bad ways. There's something about that person, maybe unrealized at this point, that is really valuable and will eventually rise to the calling and add something to all of us, which then traces back to this idea that Jesus went after everybody. Right? No, everybody. I've got some great, I got to read this to you. This comes from, I spent years gathering information from psychic readings about Jesus, trying to figure out who this guy was, based on psychic stuff. And so I compiled a few of the best little one-liners and zingers from multiple sources. I just want to read a couple of paragraphs here. And let this soak in based on what you guys have heard tonight. He was kind. He was loving. He was gentle. He was mindful of loved ones and friends. He wined and dined with the wealthy. He consorted with the poor and the downtrodden. He slept in the fields with the shepherds. He taught on the hillsides and in the temples. He walked by the seashore with the throngs. He went wherever he was invited and reached, touched, and healed others in their own plane of experience. He grew faint and weak. His heart ached. His body bled. He experienced all the weaknesses of the flesh. He commanded the wind, the storm, the elements, the thunder and lightning. He was the first soul to experience and master everything in heaven and in hell, in body, in mind, in spirit. Perhaps the most obvious and significant difference between the human life and the life of the Master was that Jesus was never blind nor deaf to the simplest opportunities along the way. He never lost sight of his purpose to bring God fully manifest in man, to make God fully manifest in man. Whereas other prophets spoke through words, through prophecies, through admonitions, through knowledge, through great deeds, Jesus spoke through the human experience. He knew it was not in the thunder or lightning, not in the loudness of words or the magnitude of deeds, but in the little things, the kind word, the gentle touch that brought God into the hearts and minds of men and women. Instead of seeking to illustrate metaphysical truths or demonstrate healing ability or explain the laws of God and life or gain followers, Jesus was motivated first and foremost by compassion. Above all, Jesus taught and demonstrated love. Okay, last thoughts here. Some of the bottom lines we've learned this evening is everyone is important. Everyone is important. And we are here to love everyone, including ourselves. including ourselves, like God does. And this means we are here to step by step, day by day, become living embodiments of God in the same way that Jesus was and reportedly is. So if I can leave you with one last bit of information about, well, okay, put some teeth on this. What exactly should we do? The best story I know comes from Howard Storm, which we've heard last week or the week before. Love the person you're with. Everybody, how many people heard that story? Okay, well, I'm going to read it one more time. And this is what we're going to end with. This is just the most fabulous story. I put this in so many places. It's just great. Okay, so Howard Storm is in heaven with Jesus, having this conversation with him, right? It's Howard Storm and it's Jesus, so these are buddies. They're just having this conversation. Okay, Howard's telling the story now. When Jesus told me that I had to come back to the world, and I was trying to convince him not to send me back, I asked him, what would I do if I came back? Before he had a chance to answer, I said, you know, I'm an artist. I would like to build a shrine for you. I would make this shrine so big and beautiful and bizarre that people would come from all over the world just out of curiosity to see what it was about. And what they would find was it would be about you, and that would make them think about you. That's what I would like to do if I'm sent back. And Jesus said, I'd rather you didn't do that. And I said, what? People have been building shrines to you forever. There are lots of shrines. Why can't I build a shrine? I would like to build a shrine. He said, you spend so much of your life hiding out in your studio, avoiding people. I would prefer it if you didn't avoid people by building this big shrine. I don't really care about shrines. People like to build shrines. I understand that. It makes them feel good. It does absolutely nothing for me or for God. We don't have any use for them whatsoever. If that's what amuses you, I guess that's what you got to do. But don't do it for me. Don't deceive yourself into thinking it's something I want or need, because I don't. And I'm like, okay, you shot down my idea. What's your idea of what I should do? And he said, love the person you're with. And I said, okay, great, I'll do that. No problem. Now, what do you want me to do? He said, I just told you what I want you to do. Love the person you're with. And I said, yeah, but after that, what do I do? What do you really want me to do? No, that is what I want you to do. Love the person you're with. I said, well, that's simple enough. That's easy. I can do that. And he said, oh, really? Well, that's what I want you to do, so that's enough. And I said, how is it enough? He said, if you do that, you'll change the world. And I said, oh, you want me to change the world? Exactly. That's why I put you in the world in the first place, to change the world. Well, you know, there's been a lot of people that have tried to change the world, and they usually turn out really pretty badly. I can think of examples like Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong. All of them wanted to change the world, and they made it worse. If I go back and try to change the world, why isn't it possible that I could do a lot of terrible mistakes and make the world a worse place? The way that I want you to change the world is by loving the person you're with. Wait a minute, that's a contradiction. You want me to change the world, but you just want me to love the person I'm with? Yes, that's the plan. That's the big plan. If you love the person you're with, they will go out and love the person that they're with. And they will go out and love the person they're with. And it will be like a chain reaction, and love will conquer the world, and everyone will love one another. That's God's big plan. Howard Storm says, it's not going to work. Why won't it work? I love the person I'm with. They walk across the street and get run over by a truck. Everyone gets angry and upset. And Jesus says, yeah, that happens. But it's really God's plan, and nothing is going to stop it. It's going to happen. Even if you had 1 million people, I don't think it's going to happen. There's more than 1 million people in the plan. Well, from what I know of the world, you don't have enough. Actually, we have all the angels in the plan. There's a lot of them. There are more angels than there are people in the world. There are millions of people. There are all the angels. There's God. It's inevitable. The plan is going to happen. If that's your plan, I'll do it, but I just don't really see much hope for it. And Jesus said, you don't know enough to see how it's going to happen. So, Howard Storm says, my solution to everything is to love one another. And when I read the Bible and when I read the Bible and found out that was written in the Bible as Jesus' commandment, this is my commandment, that you love one another. That's the program. I have tried to be part of that program. So personally, I have no big plan other than to be loving. The only fly in the ointment was that I thought it was going to be easy, and it turns out to be the hardest thing I've ever done. It sounds so simple, but it's really difficult. It's easy for me to love my mother because she's a really nice woman, and she was a very loving woman. It's not hard to love someone who is really good and really loving, but what do you do with someone who's difficult or really nasty? Those are hard people to love. And what does it mean to love someone? Sometimes to love someone means you need to incarcerate them, and that's not a lot of fun. Sometimes loving someone means you have to put as much distance between you and them as possible and tell them never to call you, and that's not a lot of fun. Loving someone sounds so simple, but it is very difficult. So that's the big advice that I have for you guys too, for all of us, is love the person you're with. If we do that, that's the big plan that makes everything else work. Love the person you're with.